Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back to the southern wing of the Stink Bug Works. When you're building model boats like this, some processes just take longer than others. For example, painting. You got 10 minutes of shooting paint on and 2 weeks of waiting for it to dry before you can shoot another coat on, because sometimes, not always, sometimes if the underlying paint isn't quite dry and you shoot a coat of clear on it, it'll craze and wrinkle and destroy your project. So you want to make sure your underlying coats are dry. That's why it takes a long time to paint. Well, because I use that L285 epoxy exclusively, it takes me a long time to epoxy stuff. Let me give you an example. I'm going to prep these pieces. There's a little high spot there, and I might grind that with a sanding drum. So I'm going to tack glue these pieces down, to establish their location, and I'll put a weight on them that's got a straight edge, so they'll also be parallel because, the battery mount's going on top of them. So once they're tacked in, 24 hours later, I can come back with epoxy and milled fiberglass, because, see, this bottom isn't flat and this is. So there's a lot of empty spaces under there. So I'd like to take up those empty spaces with epoxy and fiberglass. Then once that's done, another 24 hours, and I can glue this on, and another 24 hours. So it's 3 days. I could conceivably glue this on at the same time I mixed up the fiberglass with the resin there. I could put the resin here. Maybe I'll do it that way. We'll have to see. But the hull is kind of picking where these are going to go, because the hull's not totally even from, how they laid the cloth and such. So that's one thing that gets glued in there. The other thing is the servo. And as I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to have to put a little bend somewhere in the rod. Things just aren't lining up perfectly. Either this arm's too tall, or the rudder's too high or too low, or something. One other thing I'm going to do, there's been discussion about running a single turn fin, and the little boats that race, the Mini Dom and the Scored, only use a single turn fin, and there's not much point in having a turn fin here. Well, I'm setting this thing up with 4S. It's going to be stupid fast. It's going to be uncontrollably fast. It's going to get a lot of airtime, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to put another turn fin on there. But Dr. Jet, you drilled a hole there and you can't put a clamp. Yeah, I know. So what I'll do is I'll use carbon fiber. I'll take a carbon fiber piece and I'll glue it inside here. I'll have to cut a notch. In here for that piece. But it'll be cool, It'll still have the hole there, and away we go. So I'll have a piece in there, and I'll thread a hole through it and put a turn fin on it. So that's what I've got left to do, boys and girls. A lot of gluing. I'm still scratching my head about the servo. So I'll play around with it later on once everything else is done. Partly I'm eyeballing this linkage because it's so long. I haven't cut it down to the exact length. So, or the approximate exact length. So we'll see if I have to put just a little bend, because with this swinging this way, with the servo arm swinging this way, in neutral, the rod's going to be at its highest point. So when this is in neutral and this is in neutral, you want the rod up towards the top because it's only going to go down whichever way it goes. And the same thing applies with this direction. When it's totally neutral like this, it's going to be the furthest away. As it moves, it's going to move inwards. So you want it on the far part of the hole. So, because I'm using this action and this action, I want the rod at neutral up in this corner right here on a 45-degree angle from the center. So that's kind of where I want this rod to be resting, at neutral. And without bolting it onto here, for one, it's a little trying, but we shall see. We shall see. I'll shorten this up and cut more threads in it, and then we'll have it. Until next time, boys and girls, jet out.